we have already quite a few attendees here and we want to begin. Apologies for that little technical issue, everyone. So it's 8 a.m. for Amy and it's afternoon here in Israel. But for anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Hadass. I think most of you maybe do know me. I'm a client relations manager for the Popular Investor Program. And many of you the whole time reach out to Zara, who's the other client relations manager, or myself, or the Popular Investor team, wanting to grow your assets under copy and be more visible. And really one of the best tools that we have is PR, right? And kind of building yourself up, using PR in the media and growing your assets under copy through that. So thankfully, eToro has many resources which we like to use. And Amy here, who we're very thankful for, because as you know, Amy, as you just said, it's just 8 a.m. in the morning for you. We're really glad that you can join us really to lead this webinar today on how popular investors can utilize the media and PR and also PR at eToro in order to to grow your assets under copy. So Amy, I'm not sure if I just mentioned your title, but you're the global PR and communications manager for eToro. That's the correct title?
Yes, I head up PR and communications globally.
Awesome.
So I'll do a little intro about me, and then I've got some slides, but I do want to make this as interactive as possible because I'm here to answer your questions more than anything.
Awesome.
So I joined eToro over 4 years ago now. I come from a more traditional financial services background. I was global head of PR for the investment arm of AXA, which is one of the world's largest insurance companies, where I managed a network of PR agencies around the world. And then prior to that, I was agency side, so not a member of various PR agencies. So I've been doing this for about almost 20 years now. And I'm actually going to start with what PR is, because even though I've been doing it for 20 years, I still find myself explaining on almost a daily basis what PR is and what PR isn't. I will keep this high level. I'm sure there are varying degrees of knowledge amongst you, but it's always good for us to have a little reminder. So what is PR? I like to think of PR as storytelling. We, as individuals, we work with an organization, or it could be a government, or it could be a person, it could be a celebrity. You know, we've all heard of, celebrity PR spinners. And it's about trying to cultivate a positive story that represents your client, whether, as I said, whether it's an organization, a government, an individual, represents your client in the best possible light. So it's about shaping their reputation, promoting a product. It could be promoting an idea, and it's about trying to get positive media coverage and media awareness of that. The real difference between PR and marketing, and I'll come on to a little bit more on this later, is we are in the business of persuasion. We have our words, we have our creativity, we have our ideas to try and convince an audience, normally the media, but it goes a little bit broader than that, to write and talk about our company, our idea, our product. And here we're talking about earned media. And again, this is the difference between PR and marketing. So we say that if you get coverage from PR, it is earned, rather than if you get media from advertising, it is paid. So that's the real difference. Earned, this idea of persuading someone to do something, and then they do it without the exchange of money, or paid. The reason why, and I'm obviously biased because this is what I do, but the reason why PR is seen as being so effective is there is implicit third-party endorsement there. So if I've been talking to a journalist at the Financial Times, the Wall Street Journal, Cosmopolitan, Vogue, and they write about eToro, or they write about one of our popular investors, that is another person not connected to eToro writing about eToro or writing about the popular investor. So there is implicit third-party endorsement there. There's someone not connected to the company or not connected to the individual who thinks there's a good enough story to tell here, rather than you opening a magazine or looking online and there being an advert, which is the company pushing a message to you. So I firmly believe, and all the evidence suggests, that PR and effective PR builds credibility and it builds trust in a brand. This is very basic. I've been using it for years and it makes me laugh every time. So, you know, marketing, as I said, here's the little green eToro bird saying, I'm a great singer, I'm a great singer. Advertising even more, and you know, eToro is quite famous for the, you know, the impact and scale of our advertising. You know, there'll be banner ads everywhere, there'll be out of home, there'll be, you know, on TV, that message constantly. PR, as I said, is about someone else. So we've got this little purple bird who is a media source saying, believe me, he's a great singer. And then branding. So when all of these come together, that, you know, the holy grail is that you have the client, our target, this little bluebird saying, I know you're a great singer. So they've seen the marketing, they've seen the advertising, they've read the PR, and now they, you know, believe and understand that we're a great singer. So very, very silly, very basic, but I like these little birds. They've accompanied me on my career. And we will share these slides for whoever wants them. They are quite wordy, but I'm a words person rather than a visual person, so forgive me. So we've talked about the difference between paid and earned, the difference between marketing and PR, and obviously with anything like this, there are pros and cons. So while I don't pay media to print my stories, I also don't have control over what they print. So if one of my marketing colleagues were to talk to a publication and say, we want to place an advert, or there's a phrase called advertorial, which you sort of see sponsored articles and things. And nowadays the rules are quite clear that you do have to make it clear, if things are sponsored, so someone reading it knows that money has exchanged hands. So in an advert, myself as eToro, we have total control of what that advert looks like. Yes, it has to go through compliance, and you know, it has to be clear, fair, and not misleading, but we can put out that message. We could put out a message that just had a picture of Hadass saying, we love Hadass, she's the best person in the whole wide world.
Thanks, Amy.
I would struggle to get a journalist to print that. Now, maybe if we built an amazing relationship, then the journalist might write an article about Hadass and about the Popular Investor Program, the way she works with you all, this idea of a relationship between a company and the individuals, something about how, you know, the Popular Investor Program, but it wouldn't be a direct sales spiel. It wouldn't just be an eToro message. There would be the journalist's interpretation, and it would have to be seen as more than just marketing. Journalists' big thing is they don't want to be seen as just doing our job, doing the marketing job for a company. So there has to be something there that makes it a story, going back to this idea of PR as storytelling. So it would be tapping into a bigger theme. So the theme here could be, you know, the rise of individuals investing. It could be something about women in investing. You know, we're incredibly proud of the number of female popular investors we have on our platform, and we're trying to grow their numbers. But it can't, most of the time, though journalism standards vary, it can't directly just be a eToro message. It has to link in with something. And the scary bit about PR, the reason I love it, but it keeps me on my toes still after nearly 20 years, is I don't know what that journalist is going to print. So we'll set up an interview, but I can't tell you what they're going to print. In certain markets, there will be quote approval. So they may share, especially if they've done quite a technical interview and the journalist is younger or less experienced in the technical areas, they may share with the spokesperson and with the PR person, these are the quotes they're going to use. But 9 times out of 10, especially with the top media that we want to be into, they won't send you the article. Whereas, as I said, if you've got an advert, we control it all, and we basically give the copy to the media. So we don't pay for it, but we also don't have complete control. That doesn't mean that they can write whatever they want. There is always a right to reply, and if something is factually inaccurate, we have the right to demand a correction. But it's my job and my team's job to make sure that we work with journalists we know, and also we don't put people in situations where things like that are likely to happen. And I'll talk a little bit more later about some of the rules. We are at eToro. I'm going to go through very quickly because the most important thing is you guys, not eToro. So essentially our role divides into two. It's about raising eToro's profile, trying to have more visibility on eToro, trying to increase the awareness and understanding of eToro amongst our target media. And our target media is not just financial media, isn't just investment media. We increasingly want to be in those lifestyle publications. You know, we want to touch everyone, and we want to get more people investing. So we don't just want to be in the Wall Street Journal, or we don't want to just be in investment publications. And then the second bit, which is the bit that we sort of don't talk about but keeps us busy, is protecting eToro's reputation. So trying to make sure that we are there to correct any misunderstandings, to answer any questions from media. As a customer-facing brand, as a B2C company, we are interacting with clients every day. You know, we have over 28 million registered users from more than 100 countries. At some point or other, not everyone will be happy. And if people aren't happy, they sometimes go to the media or use social media as a way to try and get what they feel is redress or get answers. And so we work to try and make sure that we're helping to make sure there is a fair story out there. When people are upset, they're often, you know, not 100% rational or 100% fair in what they're saying about a company. And also things happen, you know, not everything goes 100% right all the time. And so at times we have to explain why we've made changes to the platform, or why there's been a downtime, or all sorts of horrible things that happen. So there's the two sides of it. There's promoting us and also protecting us. I'm going to whiz through now. You guys, popular investors. For me, it is one of the most important relationships we have. You are the ultimate brand ambassadors. You tell the eToro story. It's so much more effective. We talked about this idea of third-party endorsement. It's so much more effective for me to have Heloise or Jay or Wesley or Yepe or any one of our popular investors out there talking to the media. They bring to life what the eToro platform is. They are actually one of our users. They have so rather than me talking to someone about the popular investor program, if a popular investor can talk themselves about it, then it's so much more powerful for me. So we need you guys, and we want to use you in our PR, and we've had some good results to do a lot more. But also PR helps you as a popular investor grow your following. So, you know, a few pretty pictures, because it wouldn't be a presentation on PR without some pretty pictures, because at the end of the day, that's our results. That's how we showcase what we've done, is by actually getting media coverage. So we had an amazing piece with Heloise in the Times. There you see her alongside Warren Buffett. I mean, one of the most amazing pictures you can can possibly imagine, to have an eToro popular investor standing there alongside one of the most famous investors in the whole wide world, and there she is. And for me, you know, a picture often tells 1,000 words, and that is, you know, ultimate achievement. And it was an article, you know, talking to her as an investor, but positioning not only her, so people look her up and are more likely to follow her and trust her, because again, it's credibility and trust. The Times, which is an incredibly well-respected newspaper in the United Kingdom, has deemed Heloise worthy to stand next to Warren Buffett. So in terms of building trust, building credibility, that's absolutely fantastic. We've got Christian in Business Insider telling his story and talking about it. And then we had Leandra in Italy. So as I said, trying to get away from just being in financial media to realizing that your potential followers and your potential copiers are reading things across the whole spectrum. So to be able to get a piece, and this piece not only spoke to Leandra, but it also spoke to Emanuela, who is the regional manager for eToro in Italy. And it was a wonderful article about, it was a whole article dedicated to eToro and investing. It's not always easy, and life would be boring if it was easy. And I probably, wouldn't enjoy my job nearly as much. This is an example of a piece that we secured in the Daily Telegraph, which is one of the leading daily national newspapers in the UK. And apologies that this is a UK example, but as English is the predominant language, I wanted to share one. And I think it's also fair to say that the UK is one of the markets where we have been doing PR for the longest for eToro, and where we've been working with popular investors for the longest. We are increasingly diversifying and have taken an increasing global approach. So we'd been talking to the Daily Telegraph about them interviewing some of our popular investors for well over a month. So things don't happen overnight. Journalists have their own news agenda, their own schedules. And then the piece appeared, and it was a huge piece. It featured 4 of our popular investors. They'd taken the time to send professional photographers to interview Jay and others. And then look at the headline: I've lost a quarter of my money, but I still want to be a full-time investor. So some people were a little bit, oh, I've lost a quarter of my money. For me, it's real. And the sentiment there is Jay providing some balance and some context that it's not always an easy ride. So thrilled with the article, 4 popular investors named, photographs. There was not a single mention of eToro. So frustrating. And we followed up with a journalist and we said, look, this is incredibly unfair. Unfortunately, that's life. And the journalist never came back to us. So I just want to provide some a bit of a reality check here. We want to work with you all. Will we make you all media superstars overnight? No. Will we work in partnership with you and find the best way to tell your story and tell eToro's story? Yes. But a little reminder that it takes time and that we don't control what they print. So how does it actually work if you guys decide that you do want to get involved and you email Hadass this afternoon and say, please sign me up, I want to get involved with some PR? So essentially it divides into, we have 3 main tactics that we use as a PR team. So there's media interviews. So we arrange for a journalist to speak with you. And it could be a journalist in your local market. And we found that in most markets, journalists are most interested in speaking to someone from their country. So an Italian journalist wants to speak to an Italian popular investor. I actually find this hugely frustrating because for me, one of the amazing benefits of the Popular Investor Program is that I can copy someone that isn't in my country, someone that has a completely different perspective and view and insights, but it takes journalists time to understand. So we see that to begin with, they certainly want to speak to someone from their country. So we'll arrange for the journalist to interview you. You will always know why you're being interviewed. So it could be that it's about the Popular Investor Program and they want to learn more about that. It could be about your own story, why you started investing. They could be writing a piece about how more people are investing and want that color. That we call it case studies, but it's this idea of bringing real human interest to a story. And you do that by speaking to real people. It's one thing to talk to Yoni Asia as our CEO. It's very different to talk to an actual client, an actual person, an actual investor. And that's where you guys hold the power, because traditionally journalists haven't had access to retail investors, because why would they? How would they speak to a retail investor? Other than if a retail investor were to contact them saying, I read your newspaper, or I read your blog, or I follow you on social media, here's my perspective. So media want to hear from you. They want to hear from these real retail investors. A member of the PR team or someone from one of our PR agencies will always be with you. And that's to protect you. That's to make sure that if an article then appears and you say, I didn't say that, there's someone else that was there that overheard and was part of the conversation, so we can get that correction. It's also to make sure you're properly briefed. So, and I'll remind you of sort of the rules at the end, but it's just vital. You don't know these journalists probably, and it could be that the journalist has a really negative opinion about eToro and is looking to write a bad story. Or it could be that we actually have spoken to them before and they're a great journalist, but they don't quite understand this aspect, or they have questions about this aspect. So we're there to help and support you. The second area is media comments. Journalists are always looking for people to quote. If you look at a news story, most news stories are not just opinion. They're not just the journalist saying, this is what I think. There are opinion pieces, and they're generally the more experienced journalists, but most will have a story. So for example, are we in a bear market, or what's a recession? And then they will be looking to quote experts. And this is where you come in as an expert. So we send out commentary, providing newsworthy, topical, current, relevant insight on a particular topic. And we do that both when journalists come to us and say, Amy, I'm writing a story on X, but we also do it proactively. So we also think, what's interesting, what's current. So for example, Ben Laidler, our global strategist, he wrote a comment around the Big Mac index. It was an index originally created by The Economist to look at inflation. So he's looked at the price. It looks at the price of the Big Mac. And so Ben didn't just put that on his social media. He's a good boy. He does keep his social media up to date. He didn't just send it out on social media. We have a list of media who we proactively target, and we send that comment to them. So there's no reason why on particular occasions we can't do the same with you. And then the third aspect is placed articles and opinion pieces. And again, it's really interesting to sort of look through media and try and understand how different articles come together. But you do see opinion pieces, do see articles which are written by guest authors in media publications. And we can look to get a guest article written by you. And how it works is we go to the newspaper or the media title with an idea. We call it a pitch. So it will be 2 or 3 lines summarizing what amazing topic you want to talk about. It could be anything. They work best when they are relevant, timely. So at the moment, it could be your experience as a retail investor in a challenging bear market. It could be, we could be targeting a women's magazine, and it could be your experience as a female investor. It could be a very contrarian view, or people, they want something that's different and interesting and exciting. So it could be we're going into a recession. They want people with an opinion, with a call, with something to say. And they won't run it if it looks just like an advert. So it can't just be about eToro or just be about you. It has to deliver something. You have to think, what are the readers of this newspaper or media or blog getting from it? So it has to be something that's interesting, informative, funny, but we can work with you on those ideas. So those are generally the 3 ways that you would interact with a journalist. Interview, so that could be face-to-face. could be a telephone call, could be a video call, sending a comment, and that would generally just be a few lines of insight on something, or a placed article, an opinion piece, and that would be a longer form piece of content. We'd agree the number of words with the publication. A little bit about the rules. Please don't, after this, run off and start contacting journalists, and that's not just to protect eToro, that's to protect yourself. Journalists are some of my closest friends are journalists, but we never ever forget that we are on different sides of a fence, and I will never 100% trust a journalist. That's not because they're nasty people, it's because we're doing different jobs. Our job is to promote and protect eToro. Your job is to promote and protect yourself. A journalist is looking for a story, and it doesn't matter for how many years they've known you. If they're a good journalist, they will always be looking for that story. So we're here to look after you. We do train people before they speak to media, because it is a very different interaction. It's not like sitting down and having a cup of tea with a friend. There is a clear agenda there, and you have to be ready for difficult questions. And it's not so much nasty questions, because most of the media that you would speak to don't want to catch you out. But sometimes a journalist that doesn't know a lot can ask the hardest questions. And so it's just preparing you for it and making sure that you are ready to convey your story, to answer their questions, and that we get the outcome we all want, which is a positive piece of coverage, showcasing yourself and showcasing eToro. And there's also a compliance aspect. So we want to make sure that we're being compliant and saying everything that in the correct way. So what if a journalist does contact you? And it happens with the rise of social media, as you begin to do more work, Heloise, Jay, Yeppe are increasingly contacted directly by journalists. But the same applies to them as it does to anyone in eToro. Don't just speak to a journalist. Ask for their name and contact details. Find out what the story is. Why have they contacted you? What are they writing? When's the deadline? And then get in touch with us. And this isn't just me being a control freak. It's actually to help you. None of us do our best job just off the cuff, just like this. We're all better if we think about it. I made some slides today. I didn't have to make slides. I could have just turned up and talked to you about it, but it made me think about what are the things I wanted to share with you guys today. It gave us a resource to share with you, and it sort of focused my thoughts. The same is for any media interview. Even if you think, oh, this is really easy, they just want to talk to me about my view on inflation, I know this, I could do this with my eyes closed. It just helps to pause, speak to them at a later date, and make sure you've got your points clearly there. Because also, it's not just about answering their questions, it's about what do you want to achieve? What's the message you want to get across to this journalist and to their audience, the people reading what they're writing? And how can you build a relationship? And that's just one of the many things you have to think about with a journalist. Don't just answer their questions. What's the message you want to get across? So Hadass will share this all with you. Those are the sort of the main rules. How do you start? This is something that appeals to you. Contact the PR team, contact Hadass. We're here to help, and we're always looking to work with more popular investors. Finesse your story. Journalists want to know you, about you, as well as about your insights and your portfolio. What is it about you that is different, interesting, exciting? And you'll see if you look at some of the media coverage, and sorry, I'm using the same examples, but we have, and this is partly why we're speaking to you today, we have used a small number of people who've built profiles. Now we want to work with more of you. But if you look back, someone like Jay Smith, who we've been working with for well over 4 or 5 years now, people focus on Jay's background. If you look at Heloise, they mention what she does, what she does, what she studied and her background. With other people, it will be where they come from. We're all individuals, and we all have something that's different about us. And journalists want to bring that story to life. So you need to think about your story. Not only how do you talk about yourself as an investor, but how did you become an investor, and what's the difference that you bring? I said before, but worth repeating, I won't be able to make you famous overnight. And if we do, then it will probably be for the wrong reason, not the right reasons. It's very easy to get bad coverage if you were to do something horrendous. Building a media profile takes time, and it does take commitment. It's about building relationships. It's about building relationships with journalists. It's about honing your story. It's also about making yourself available. If you go online now and look at any newspaper, they will be quoting experts. The reason that journalist chose to speak to that expert and use their words come down to a number of things. They thought that they were the best expert on that topic. They've already established a profile on that topic, and people reading the newspaper will think, oh, yes, that person knows what they're talking about. They use good language. So one way you can build profile is by honing your ability to create sound bites that happen less and less now. But the days where we had press conferences, and it still happens, you still have prime ministers or football managers standing up giving an update and giving a press conference. You'll notice that the journalists generally write down, make notes at the same time. Someone said something that has caught their attention. So those sound bites, those significant language clauses, work those up. Work on your language, work on your storytelling. And practice makes perfect. That comes, same for, annoyingly, the same for most things in life. Practice it. Anecdotes. If you've been out with a bunch of friends and talking about,
I thought it was me, but I see that it's Amy, so we're going to wait for her to come back. In the meanwhile, I'm not sure if we're going to have time to take too many questions, but you're welcome to ask some questions in the Q&A or put your hand up, and when Amy comes back, I'll unmute you to ask a question. But I'll see if that will be possible in terms of time. Now, one thing also to add, just as a representative of the Popular Investor Program, we don't want confusion. So like what Amy said before, that she could say, everyone loves Hadass, but it's not going to be such an amazing PR story. So unfortunately, we can't control PR. And that's why as much as I'm sure we do want to write stories about all of you, we need to make sure what will actually work. So I think let's just go with what Amy said. If you get approached by PR, then feel free to email the PR email and CC your client relations manager or account manager always, so we know what's going on and we can assist. And if you think you have, the most amazing story that will work, then, you could contact us from now and then. But generally, when we have PR opportunities, we reach out to you, and some of you have been reached out to already. So that's just to prevent confusion so that we don't get lots of emails now. No problem, Amy. It's good because I explained a few things in the meanwhile, so that your inbox and my inbox shouldn't be full of 2,000 PIs who want to get PR pieces on them. So I just explained that usually we scan the popular investors who are relevant and we reach out to them. But if they're approached, then of course they should definitely reach out to you, and always put the client relations managers or account managers in CC so that we can follow up. And Amy, also, we're a bit over time, but do we have some time for Q&A? Because a few people asked questions. Do you have another 5 minutes?
I do, and sorry, I always talk too much, but as you can tell, I'm passionate about what I do, so apologies.
You're really passionate, and it's great, and all our internal communication is how interesting this is. So I'm just gonna take some questions, and if we don't have time for all of it, I'm sorry.
So, but I'm here to follow up, Hadass, so if there's anyone that wants to, talk offline or whatever. We're always here.
Brilliant. Okay, so let's start. So we have a first question asking, it's from Nikos. What do you do when media quote you without permission?
This again is when you shouldn't be talking to media without us knowing, because if we know as a PR team, they won't quote you without permission, because you will have understood the rules of engagement when you've spoken to that journalist. So if you've spoken to a journalist, you have to assume it's on the record, and therefore they're not quoting you without your permission because you've spoken to them.
Awesome, thank you. So I have two questions here that I can answer. I think I've answered them already, but I'm just going to clarify it again. So also we have a question, can all popular investors be covered by eToro's PR or only elite and elite pros? So the answer is yes, but as most popular investors or all of you should know, we do have criteria for marketing, you know, like risk score and stuff like that. You all know that. So it's generally the same for PR. So again, in ideally, everyone could be, but again, it needs to be a good story, as Amy elaborated before. So that's the answer to that. And the second is who to get in contact with. So I think I said that before, but again, I'm going to clarify. If you think you have an amazing story, reach out to PR and CC your client relations manager, or you can, you know, be in touch directly with your client relations manager or account manager, and we'll pass it on to PR and see if there's a story there. But generally, really, we reach out to you. Amy, I see you're frozen again. Can you speak? Nope, still frozen. So, okay, I see another question. I submitted a short paragraph and photo using the form. What happens with that now? That what you're referring to, Edward, is for marketing. As Amy explained, there's a difference between PR and marketing. So that we use for marketing, for notifications, for the Discover tool, etc. It's true that we can also use that if a PR opportunity comes up. But generally, our PR really follows popular investors to see if there's anyone interesting to do PR about. Now, I see a question here that I cannot answer, and I see Amy is off. So let's just see if we can wait one more minute to see if Amy comes back on. And I think if not, we'll end it for now, and you could email PR for any specific, because Amy said she's happy to be in touch with you. I see she's not coming back on. I guess Wi-Fi isn't amazing in the US. Does anyone have any last question that the popular investor team can answer? If so, please type it in now. Okay, so Amy just let me know that she can't come back on because her internet dropped. So what we're going to do is this: if you have any follow-up questions, you can comment on the popular investor page and ask questions. Oh, Amy's back. Amy, I think we're not gonna risk it again. So I think if anyone has any other questions, they can write it on the popular investor page, you know, in the comments. And if it's anything really specific to you, they could email the PR email that you put up there, right?
PR@etoro.com.
Awesome. So, and again, keep us CC'd, the client relations manager and the account managers. So Amy, I think we're going to end now because I'm too scared that your internet is going to drop again and we have no further questions. We've got one interesting one, but I think it's, I'll say it to you, Amy, maybe you can answer afterwards. This may not be related, but someone would appreciate your comments. Who agreement with fintech acquisition, eToro going public did not go through. Oh, why? Sorry. Yeah, so Amy, I don't think that's for you to.
Well, I'm more than happy to cover that, or Hadass, we can share the PR statement, because we've been very open and honest about why the SPAC deal didn't close and why we actually think remaining as a private company is the best thing for eToro. So Hadass, why don't you and I follow up and we can share with whoever asked that question, we can share the press release and further details. Or they can read Yoni's blog. Yoni's got a blog on the topic.
Yoni's blog. Awesome. Okay, so we'll follow up on that. I think we did send you all the blog, but I'm happy to resend that to you. So okay, I think we're gonna end now. Amy, thank you so much. I think it was so interesting. It's also the first time that our team, you know, has properly had this presentation and all the popular investors. I think we're going to get amazing feedback from this. So thank you so much for your time and knowledge. To all popular investors attending, as Amy said, it really is our goal to help you shine. It's good for you. It's good for eToro. So we're on the same side here. So we're happy to really work together moving forward to see how we can make that work. And yeah, Amy is always happy to help. I know, because we work a lot with a PR team, and popular investors can who've been you know, in PR stories can, I guess, vouch for that. So thanks again, and we're gonna follow up, and we look forward to have good partnerships and corporations coming out of this webinar. So thank you all. Have a good day.